All right, welcome back, everyone, to the CXplorers Podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about AI and the future of the retail experience. Um, I've noticed personally, doing a lot more shopping in brick and mortar, even going to like the Uniqlo stores, a lot more AI integration in terms of just that self checkout process, the automated shelf. So, really excited to have our guest, Pat, today on episode 6. Welcome, Pat, to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Happy to be with you guys today.
Awesome. And Jasper, always welcome to have you as well as my
Absolutely.
co-host on this one. So thanks for joining. So I think just to really start off and, kind of really give our audience a sense of what we're talking about today is I'll just lead off with just a quick question to the both of you. Do you guys find that AI is making shopping better, or is it just becoming a bit more robotic?
I would say it depends. I would say yes and no. Yes, because sometimes it's going to help the customer being self-serve, being able to find what they're looking for without necessarily having to interact with anyone. Because sometimes you go to those kind of customers, why they walk in, don't talk to me, I need something. And I would say no, because as you said, sometimes it's very robotic. And that human touch that customers are looking for, craving for, is missing. So I would say it's a yes and no answer at the same time. I think there's some, some evolution that needs to happen, some improvement that needs to happen. I think we're on the right way. But for the time being, it's a little bit like difficult. Let's put it that way.
Totally agree with that, because I think there needs to be more tailoring of where these processes or AI gets integrated for. Exactly your point, right? If I'm walking into, a hardware store and I know exactly what I'm going in for. I just need to buy, a regular item that I'm replenishing. I don't need someone coming to me or an AI saying, "Hey, how can I help make your experience stellar today?" It's like, I don't want to click this button. Just let me get my my paper towels, pay for it myself, walk to my car because I'm probably in my pajamas, and I'll get home, right? But I think conversely, if I'm walking into a luxury retail store, right, and I expect to go in there spending thousands of dollars on something, I think that experience is expected for all customers that kind of want that, white glove treatment. So I guess, Jasper, I want to pick your brain on this too. How do you feel, or what are things that you've seen in terms of how AI is really creating a tailored customer journey, like even through like Amazon, Shopify,
Yeah.
or even through like Instacart, Smart Shop, things like that?
Well, I think we've talked about some of these machine learning models throughout our journey with CXplorers podcast, and definitely AI, especially with machine learning, has played a huge role when it comes to hyper customizing, right? The things that we want to see on our screen. Like the biggest example really is how Facebook and even Google is using our digital footprint for us to, or for them to actually throw out those targeted advertisement that we would want to see. Like I know DC, we've talked about it, like you search something on your Google search bar on your phone, then right immediately when you go to some of your news feed, you're seeing products that was relevant to what you've previously searched, right? So there's a lot of things that all this data that these companies are able to mine. There's machine learning technology there that can tailor fit, your digital footprint to the specifics of what you would potentially want to buy. So definitely huge leap there, and I completely agree with you both, right? That there should always be that fine line on how automated we want to be. But to answer the question, Dan, that you threw out to Pat, me, it's definitely a yes, because I'm that kind of person who's just really geeking out about all of this AI stuff in general. And as an introvert as well, Pat, I would rather kind of do all of my transaction online and just be able to go through with it without having to kind of go through an actual human person to kind of assist me. But that's just me. That's my own personal
Mhm.
preference, right?
But I would say also, for me, it's about, because we're talking about retail, right? For me, it's about how do you blur the lines between brick and mortar and offline. Offline meaning, I'm calling the call center, I'm going on the website. How do I connect the dots? Because when you shop like online and then you want to go to a store, sometimes they don't even know who you are. right? If you're
Yeah.
not someone who's usually shopping in that specific location, they do not know you from Adam. So you have to tell your story one more time, two more times, et cetera, about, why you coming in, what you purchased in the past, what was the roadblocks that you faced. So for me, it's about AI is great, but how does AI blur the lines between brick and mortar and offline online? That for me is going to be very interesting if someone can have the magic wand to make it happen like seamlessly.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I agree. And let me take a stab at it, right? Because I think it's also similar, Pat, to what Daniel and I have always been talking about on how companies should adapt artificial intelligence
Mm.
innovation tools as a solution, because it's not going to be like a one size fits all kind of thing, right? Or just throw innovation right there and see what sticks, right? Because people, they love the notion about, oh, we're innovating, oh, we're going to be deploying AI, because that's just the fun of it. Like everyone is just hyped out about it. And Daniel and I, we've talked about some approaches and steps on how folks would actually go about using artificial intelligence, not
Mm-hmm.
just in retail, right, but in general. So we've actually categorized it into three types of things, right? So you have your customer facing AI, you have your agent facing AI, and you have your support facing AI.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be like the step one for you, right? Uh, you need to identify what part of your business will AI play a huge role, right? In terms of retail, right? Do you really want to innovate AI that's immediately going to be customer facing, or do you want to have an artificial intelligence solution that would be first on your frontline agents or maybe on your support, right? You need to be able to define those criteria for you to have a successful AI innovation, and from there, right? When it comes to blurring the lines, whether or not how AI can actually assist customers in real time, you have different solutions out there that we've also talked about in this podcast already. You have, first and foremost, your IVAs, so intelligent virtual agents, right? There's going to be those super powered LLMs right now that you're able to talk to, almost similar to how you would converse with a human person without sounding super robotic, right? And these IVAs, Pat, it has a mechanism for you to ingest some of the historical footprint of your customer, right? So it would understand, the things that this customer, like purchase history, any type of ticket that this agent actually or this customer raised in the past. So all of those, right? And just more recently, we have what we call AI agents,
Mm-hmm.
right? Wherein it's not only going to be an LLM who would be able to talk to a customer, but it can also do some task on itself, like send an email, update the CRM, be able to do the cancellation or the refund, etc. So all of those, I think, plays a crucial role when it comes to how you would want to improve or deploy artificial intelligence with your current business. So I know that was kind of long winded, but that's my 2 cents of it.
I love where you're going with this. I would say as long as the data is there to be, fueling the AI, because the one thing that sometimes customers think like AI is great, but at some point you're forcing me to talk to someone, and this is where the dissatisfaction happens because you're telling them, okay, here it is, self-serve, you can do everything, and at some point there's some kind of a blockage that forces them to talk to someone. So 100% all for AI as long as the data is there to be seamlessly integrated. So then the full experience can be done without talking to someone, yet the experience is still remains, whatever the brand wants, requests, is trying to fuel back to the customer for sure.
Yeah, and I think
Absolutely.
that's where, AI may play a really prevalent role around just the know your customer type of journey and metric, right? Because it helps enable, customer service agents in the retail space or even people in brick and mortar, locations to really be able to filter out any bias that data may also have, right? So, for example, if someone came in and was buying something for a wedding, hopefully they're not coming in the next month buying the same purchase for a wedding as well, right? So, really trying to understand, like, okay, maybe this was a one-off. I know this customer, and I can use this to really help build that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really where, to your point, right? It's about we need to make sure that the backend data is clean, that it's used as a tool more so to help with that KYC journey, right? Because again, regardless of any store that I walk into, whether it's to pick up eggs or whether it's to buy, something nice for my wife, I do expect them to know, what my expectations are in that experience, right? Sometimes, and I think that emotional intelligence is what often lacks sometimes, because it's like, okay, I have a metric, I'm trying to get sales, so I'm just going to talk to everyone that comes through, right? But I think
Mm-hmm.
AI can really enable people to say, this person comes in every Monday at noon doing the same purchase, let them get in and out because they have to pick up their kids from, soccer practice or something like that. And I think, um, I don't know about, the world, different other banks, but I know with like certain banks in Canada, they're doing very well with that know your customer piece, using technology to understand these types of transactions to protect the customer, right? And I think that's ultimately where I think the customer we need to understand as well where this becomes an issue of privacy or convenience, right? And where's that fine
Yeah.
line for every single person? Because some people may say, well, hold on, you guys are way too intrusive in terms of what
Mm-hmm.
you're scraping through and what you're recommending, or vice versa, right? So I think that's a natural bias that exists, just simply because not everyone has the same adoption rate as AI, for AI. But I think, the brick and mortar stores that really innovate, like Uniqlo as an example again, is that experience always positive for me, because if they don't have something in stock, that person knows immediately how fast it'll take to get to me if I order it online, and they can even order it to the store for me to pick up. Right, and I really love that ability where you have direct inventory control right at your phone tips. And if I don't need to talk to you, you don't talk to me. Right, it's
Mm-hmm.
I'll come to you, and then they're just kind of hovering there. Right, and I think that blend, they're really trying to figure out, where do we intervene here? Where do we provide the best in class? Or where do we really just let the customer kind of look around and do their shopping? And I think just really understanding, are you going to be using self checkout, or are you going to be using one of us? They right off the bat know what kind of experience you want, right? So if I say, hey, I'm looking for new joggers, right, in different colors, then I expect them to come help me out with that and not just have me standing there aimlessly awkward in the store, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that tailor made kind of solution is very hard to address, but it's about what kind of information can we equip people with so that the human can then intervene and make that decision in terms of providing that experience.
And I would say, so what you're describing is literally personalization. So really personalization in the moment, but also, post purchase. In other words, how do you do perfect clienteling? So then when you're pushing information to the customer, AI knows what to push, because more often than not, I get a lot of email with, oh, here's a new product, here's this, but I'm like, I'm not interested. I know I bought from you in the past, but what you're pushing to me is like, nah, not relevant. So what I would love to see is AI being able to really target what I bought in the past and then try to understand what would appeal to me in the future, whether it's a service, whether it's a product, whether it's potentially a new store. Because at the end of the day, where I'm living today may not have a store, but let's say in 3 months, they may be opening a store. I'm like, and I want to know that. So how do you personalize even post-purchase, but more specifically clienteling? How does AI can help you do a better clienteling program in the future?
I
Yeah.
think Instacart's kind of automated AI store is a perfect example of how brick and mortar can address to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to cut you off, Jasper, but I think
Yeah, no
by
problem.
understanding, having a client profile, right? Understanding if I have celiac or I need to eat gluten free, or, if I have, lactose intolerance and I need low dairy products, having that kind of profile and dietary restrictions or needs, or if I'm trying to achieve a certain fitness goal and say, you know what, I'm really trying to cut carbs out and go all carnivore right now, whatever the hottest trend is really being able to kind of tailor that. And I think, when you can walk into a brick and mortar store, enter your profile, and it understands, okay, this is kind of your style profile. What are you looking for? Is it a particular event? Is it more so just re-upping on your, basic essentials? That I think can really help that customer journey and help train that AI
Mm-hmm.
along that KYC journey that I was talking about.
Agree. I like that.
Yeah, and to me, while Pat was talking, one of the things that popped inside my head was really this predictive modeling type of machine learning stuff. DC, right? It's similar to how we actually do it in the BPO world, right? Like you have there your CSAT forecasting, workforce forecasting kind of thing, right? So right now with AI, and we've probably beaten this phrase like a dead horse, that your data is the most important thing for you right now in this AI race, right? If you have your data for you to be able to train your own models, you're going to be golden, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these even open source large language models right now, one of the things that they're lacking right now is data, right? It's not going to be enough for them to just use general data like purchasing pattern that's readily available on the internet. If they want to make something more specific towards the lines that you, Pat, and Daniel just talked about, right, they would need access specifically to these business owners, right, to these giants about historical purchases of customers for them to be able to define the fine line on what's going to be intrusive type of marketing versus the one that really is the perfect spot for that particular customer. So that's exactly what popped into my head. So I guess if you would want to be able to create your own models, such as that predictive type of model, you need to heavily invest in utilizing your internal data. That's going to be key to that. So that's my take on it.
What also is going to be very interesting is how do you manage the data based on geos, right? Because in North America, you may have potentially less regulation than in Europe. So when you are an international organization with a massive footprint, then what does AI or data collection looks like in North America versus EU versus APAC? That is going to be very interesting because if everything
Yeah.
is integrated, then how do you sort it out? Good luck.
And I think DC, that's definitely for a lot of the big companies out there to figure out, right? Like OpenAI, Google. Like I think all of these things that we're talking about right now, it's something that's ongoing with a lot of the discussions that's happening on a broader field, especially the ones that are leading the industry.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think the challenge with even despite having like really consistent, robust data, creating an emotionally intelligent customer interaction with AI is still leaps and bounds away, in my opinion. There's certain transactions or drivers I think that it can do very well in, but it can't really carry that conversation, right? And I think that's really where, as we kind of work on these building blocks to get there, it's really understanding like what's that experience look like, whether you're in brick and mortar, whether you're going to be, online purchasing, right? It's really being able to keep a customer engaged and build loyalty. And I think the emotional element is really been removed from this retail, especially with e-commerce, because again, with Amazon, it's just click, 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 click. I know what I want, choose my size, purchase it. I'll do my own research. I'll read reviews on it. We have very intelligent customers now, right? So I think it's about how do we now bring emotion back into this, and can AI help with that, right? And I think it can, in the sense that, like I mentioned, with a different profile, right? If someone opts into creating a profile, and this can be something that they opt in to have it shared with their global organization, right? So it doesn't matter if you're going to Louis Vuitton in New York or you're going to in Paris. It's that same experience. They know who you are and they treat you accordingly, right? And I think that's ultimately the experience people want. It's like, this is why I'm loyal to this brand, is because they treat me well regardless of where I am, right? They know my purchase history, they know my spend history, and they're really trying to build that relationship. And it doesn't have to, I use LV as an extreme, right? But we can also talk about, even going to like the Home Depot, right? If you're a contractor, you have your pro service profile. They know what it is you do. If you're a plumber, if you're an electrician. So naturally, there's certain products they're going to recommend for certain deals and sales that come on for you, or they're going to have, different demo days where you can learn a different, skill set in terms of applying a new product. So it really goes both ways. But I think that's really where we need to blend that emotion back in, knowing what we know about customers and getting their buy-in to voluntarily say, yes, I want you guys to have this profile. I want you to know about my, what it is that I'm looking on Instagram. So that way I can really make sure that, I have control over some of the marketing and media that's coming through to me, right? And I think the reality is not everyone goes through their reels like I do, removing ads and customizing the types of ads they want, right? So
True.
I don't want to see this ad anymore, like this type of ad. I think that gives feedback, to the engineers at the back end that, okay, Daniel Cheung doesn't want to see this anymore, so we need to give him another one. Yeah. So, Pat and DC, I think really the overarching theme, like with any of the topics that we've gone through with AI, it's really going to be that AI and human collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
right? Working at its best for you to be able to balance out the whole customer experience right now. So I don't think with all of the sectors that we've looked into, and not just specifically to this podcast, right? But a lot of the resources that I'm seeing on LinkedIn, they're really driving that human and AI collaboration. Rarely I see, articles that, hey, this is is fully AI, fully automated, without having some backfire or some follow up news that, hey, this completely flopped, right? So I think it's still going to be for business owners, for them to be able to find that balance, and for them to be able to identify, right, okay, which segment of my business where AI would really shine. It's not going to be like, AI would answer everything. I mean, as much as we want it to, right, it's still going to be humans who would ultimately decide on where they would want to implement the solution.
Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of adoption, AI is going to be, getting. Because, interacting with customers through different brands, some people are saying like, hey, no, I still want to have that human to human interaction. Yes, a little bit of AI, but I still want to have that human to human interaction. If you can give me the same interaction, the same way I'm feeling when I'm talking to a human, by all means, give me AI, but as long as you don't provide me with that kind of warmth, so to speak,
Yeah.
it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, Pat, if you don't mind, maybe you would want to tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can follow you on your socials.
So I am definitely on LinkedIn for sure, and I think you guys can share my profile with the audience. I'm also the co-founder of ReThink CX, and you can find me on rethinkcx.com. And this is where you can find me locally in Toronto. So coffee date anytime. More than happy to do so. Yeah, this is where you can find me.
Awesome. Thanks, Pat, for being a guest. Always a pleasure to have you, and looking forward to more of these in the future as well. And I think we've talked about even having Edvin from your team as well. So I think he's keen to
Yes.
join as well. So we'll keep this series going for sure. Always love picking your brain, getting insights from the retail guru. So again, just big thank you for taking the time.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jasper. Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Like,
Thanks.
yep.